At my nephew's 5th birthday party, he received many gifts from our family and friends. And when we were all sitting in the kitchen and he was opening the gifts, he was opening the envelopes, and inside the envelopes were $20, $50, $100, and he was taking the money and throwing it on the table and keeping the envelope. And I was sitting beside him and I was asking him, Sean, what are you doing? These are your gifts. He goes, I don't need that. I just need something to write on. Then a few months later, I was told he was at a baby shower, not his shower, a baby shower. And when we give gifts, there usually has a card attached to the handle of a bag. And as he was sitting there and whoever's baby shower it was opening the gifts, there was a card inside as well. So Sean was asking my sister, why is there a card inside when there's already a card outside? And she was saying, because they want to write something. But why don't they write on the card outside? What is the point of the card inside? And recently I was in San Diego, and I was driving with the family to the Jnana Yajna. And they had a son who was in grade 1. And I asked him, I said, so where were you born? Because they're a younger family, so I wanted to know where in India they had come from. And he looks at me and goes, Vivekji, I was born in the hospital. Where were you born? These simple experiences of life, a birthday card or money as a gift or asking where someone is born, is all about perspective. And what I'm highlighting here is that a child's perspective is very different than our perspective. At the beginning of Vivek Chudamani, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya narrates how great it is to be born as a human being. In Frederick, we're studying Vivek Chudamani. How it's great to be born as a human being, even better to be born as a sattvic human being, even better to be guided by the Guru Parampara. And how this doesn't come after not millions of years, but billions of lifetimes. Does one have such a privilege, such a blessing? Only you and I can evolve past naras into the divine. We have a yoga yoni. Animals and devatas have bhoga yonis. And I'll explain. Bhoga means to indulge or to exhaust. Animals keep on exhausting their karmas until they evolve into human beings. Devatas keep on exhausting their positive karmas until they devolve, but really it's an evolution, into human beings as well. They can only exhaust. Animals move up, devatas move down. Bhoga yonis. Humans, me and you, we have yoga yonis. Yoga means to unite. In this birth, in this womb, you and I can go up, you and I can go down, but the real purpose of the yoga yoni is to come off the graph. Only you and I can do that. Animals are looking up to us. When are we going to be human so we can get realized? Devatas are also looking at us. When will we exhaust these positive karmas so we can get realized? Only we are eligible for such a privilege. This body is evolved to its peak. We no longer have tailbones to slow us down. The structure of our teeth is changing. We have less hair generation after generation. Just look around and you can see. We don't need as much hair because we don't need it to stay warm. That's why even on our body we have less and less hair, though as Indians we may not believe that. But we don't use hair for warmth anymore. We use clothing and central heating. Back in the day, that wasn't like that. Now, the field has changed. The field of evolution is the mind. Our body's been perfected. Now the focus should be on the mind. And what's fascinating about this is that the body's evolution is unconscious. I can't force my teeth to change. I can't force my muscles to change. But my mind, that is a choice. That is a conscious decision. A natural question then is, what is the divine? What is this divinity that I'm supposed to evolve to? Some call it Brahman, others God, others call it energy. Whatever the concept may be, at the end of the day we're thinking, how can I be that? How can I be divine when I feel so undivine? How can I be limitless when I feel so limited? So where is the connection here? According to Vedanta, the divine is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Existence, awareness, and joy. That's what it means to be divine. Existence, everywhere. Awareness, everywhere. Joy, too, is everywhere. This Satchitananda is infinite. Now, mathematically, what number is exclusive of infinity? None. Scientifically, spatially, what is exclusive of infinity? Nothing. Everything is inclusive into infinity, including you and me. This journey is so fascinating because two things happen when we hear that the infinite is infinite. Either you're all infinite and I'm not, or I think I'm infinite and you're not. This selective understanding. See, all the parents, you often say that your kids have selective hearing or selective seeing. They only hear and want to see what they want to. And they're saying the same thing about you. But what we all suffer from is selective understanding. That how authoritatively our scriptures and masters are saying the infinite is all, yet we don't believe that. How can I be infinite? Which is why our Swami Vivekananda said, the only atheist is the one who doesn't believe in himself. That is the only atheist. Because that divinity resides within oneself. One is that divinity. Again, I don't experience that divinity. How can one say that? We are experiencing that divinity. We're just not paying attention to it. We are experiencing that existence, that awareness, that joy. In the Vedanta course, before we got into the technicality of what Maya is, my understanding of Maya was not paying attention. How do I know I'm suffering from Maya? When I don't pay attention to my own life. That's what it means to suffer from Maya. Inadvertence. In Vivek Chudamani, it says inadvertence is death itself. Inadvertence is just me not paying attention. Which again is why when Narendra went to Ramakrishna Paramahansa, he said, "Do you see God?" He was an atheist, hardcore logician. And what did Ramakrishna Paramahansa say? "I see God more clearly than I see you," was his response. Narendra at that time wasn't paying attention, whereas Ramakrishna Paramahansa was paying attention. That's the only difference. For those who are in the discourse this morning, the difference between Lord Krishna and Arjuna is that Lord Krishna remembers all of his births. He's paying attention. Arjuna doesn't remember his births. He's not paying attention. Many of us have seen the movie Peaceful Warrior. In that scene too, when he's sitting by the tree and Joy tells him, "Are you paying attention to this experience of what you're going through?" She finally makes him realize that he needs to go see his guru. And he does, and he's saved. He succeeds in the world and beyond the world too. Sat Chit Ananda is not a theory, it is a law. When we use the term mythology, what is the first part of mythology? It's a myth. We don't study mythology, we study theology. It's not the theory of reincarnation, it's not the theory of karma, it is the law of reincarnation, the law of karma. So when I go outside and I hold a stone in my hand, is there existence in this stone? Yes or no? Yes. What about awareness? What about joy? But you just said that Brahman is infinite, so Satchidananda has to be everywhere. There is existence and awareness and joy in this stone, but the stone is not able to express it. When a child is hungry but doesn't know how to speak, so what does it do? It cries. Just because it says it's not hungry, I'm hungry, doesn't mean it's not hungry. It just can't express it. Plants' existence? Yes. Awareness? Yes. We have a PhD in botany who comes to our Gita discourses in Niagara Falls, and he said that when we rip a blade of grass or a leaf or take a vegetable out of the ground, it releases a chemical that's equivalent to a human being crying. So, there is awareness. What about joy? There's joy too, but that expression is not there. Animals' existence? Yes. Awareness? Yes. Joy? Certainly. Humans' existence? A whole lot of existence. Awareness? We talk about awareness. We know how to spell awareness. They're saying that when we drive, 90% of our time, we're not paying attention while we drive. The car's on cruise control, the mind is on cruise control. Who knows what's going to happen? And joy, we experience less joy than animals and plants do. But it's there. And that's why I talked about children. They are joyous. Today, one of our Balavihara students, we were talking about how to be happy, and he was saying you have to choose to be happy. How true a statement. In Toronto, a girl said we have to allow ourselves to be happy. Joy is there. We just have to tune into that. When we say that the divine is all-pervading, is infinite, let us not treat that as mythology. This is a law. Holi was recently celebrated. When Prahlad tells his father that Bhagwan is even in that pillar, we treat that as a Balavihar story. We did this in one of our Balavihar camps in the summer. So he breaks the pillar and there's Narasimha. That's trying to teach you and I that Bhagwan is all-pervading, even in the pillar. It's not just a story. This is our scriptures. This is itihasa. This is history. And this again is why Swami Vivekananda says, don't worship Lord Krishna as Lord Krishna. Worship Lord Krishna as yourself. How authoritatively you are Lord Krishna. In Shankar Bhasha of chapter 2, one shloka where Adi Shankaracharya says, Ishwarapi, that even Ishwara cannot destroy the self. How powerful a statement that is if we can reflect on that. Our nature is as if covered. We're wearing a mala, but we can't see that mala. For those who are at the Global Chick Camp, Swami Sarupananda uses the example of, in the audience, someone here is called Harsha. His name is Harsha. And if we don't know Harsha, does that mean Harsha is not in the audience? Harsha is there, we just don't know that. We just don't know him. We have to uncover this blindness, this impurity, this ignorance, and this is the basis of our Vedic samskaras. To uncover what is there, to rediscover that infinitude. Samskara means a purificatory rite. Sam means well, skara means well done. That which is well done. Gurudev uses the example of taking an ore and turning it into an ornament. Don't we take a rock out of our ore and keep on purifying it until it becomes gold or diamond or platinum? It's taking someone who is uncultured and making them cultured. That's what our samskaras are. And once the mind is purified, I will come to know myself. For those who were there this morning, we had studied that Neo's problem in the Matrix is he doesn't know himself. And all Morpheus and the Oracle do is teach him who he is. They don't create him, they only teach him who he is. They guide him. It's no different than in the movie Inception, in the last layer, where Ariadne tells Leonardo DiCaprio, tells Dominic Cobb, don't lose yourself. Because if he loses himself, he's stuck in limbo. But if he's aware of who he is, no problems then. He comes straight out of that samsara and he's fine. This is the purpose of all religions, is to know thyself. And these samskaras are a way of cleaning that mirror. So when I see the mirror, what do I see? That mala that was always there. Because I can't see the mala. All I have to do is clean the mirror. This is why we have these samskaras. Now, everyone in this room has probably heard of the samskaras. Many people in this room probably have gone through the samskaras. But most importantly, do we know what these samskaras mean? Do we know why it's called vivaha? Do we know why we wear an upanayana? Do we know why some of us have our ears pierced? I'll tell you an example of that. One of our batchmates, I studied with Pramilaji and Anand Uncle as well in the Vedanta course with Guruji. So I asked one of our batchmates, because he had his ears pierced. And I said, why do you have your ears pierced? And this was his answer. It's so we know who's Hindu and who's not Hindu. This is at the beginning of the Vedanta course, so I said, sure, this is probably true. But when I studied our samskaras, I was thinking, these samskaras came out thousands of years ago before there was any other religion other than Sanatana Dharma. What do you mean this was used to separate Hindus and not Hindus? But just like I believed it, I'm sure, when I said that, you're all thinking, yeah, that makes sense. Do we know what the philosophy of these samskaras are? I'm going on a campaign right now to start teaching what puja vidhi is. Because everywhere I go, I ask adults, not even chicks or Balivir students, do you know how to do puja? Do you know what puja vidhi is? I've asked my own parents and they said, no, our parents just made us sit while puja was going on. And so because they never knew, they never taught my sisters and I. We just sat there too. So this entire parampara of puja vidhi, this lineage, is now over. That which our rishis have been carrying on for thousands of years in this century is now over. We have to know what puja vidhi is. We have to know what samskaras are. Otherwise, this is all over then. It is our responsibility. And this is the greatness of Chinmay Mission as well. Chinmay Mission teaches what the essence of such rituals are. It empowers people to practice them. Don't just do it. Know why one is doing it. How many samskaras do we have? 41. I can put any number up, right? There's 41 samskaras. And the reason why there's so many is because at every stage of life, the idea the rishis had is to guide us in the right direction as we continue biologically aging. Now, out of these 41, 16, as you had mentioned, have become prevalent. 41 has been filtered down to 16. 16 has been filtered down to 1 now. And how do we know which samskara that is? When we go to a wedding, it's on the seat. This is the 13th samskara. This is what is happening at a wedding, right? That's all the samskaras we know now. Even our upanayana, when do we get it done? The day before we get married. So this, again, the greatness of Chinmay Mission is to give depth to our traditions. In Tulsi Ramayana, it says, Binu satsanga viveka na hoy. Without satsang, one cannot have viveka or discrimination. And as every scripture teaches us, the first step towards enlightenment is satsang. Bhajagovindam, Shloka 9. First step is satsang. Each one of these 16 samskaras involves satsang. That as my body is aging, as I'm maturing, it has to be supported by satsang. And the premise of satsang is, as I think, so I become. It's that fundamental. The more time I spend in satsang, the more I invoke that satsang. Today at the Game of Life workshop, where the middle school and the high school students were there, I'd asked, how do you prevent peer pressure? How do you prevent yourself from succumbing to peer pressure? And a common response was, surround yourself by people who are good, who are positive, who are strong. Because one invokes the same. We all know that. Our own life experiences has taught us that. These samskaras begin before we're born, and they continue on till after we die. Gurudev uses a term, from womb to tomb. Initially, the samskaras are done by others, but as we grow up, we do the samskaras for ourselves, and then we do it for others. And all of these samskaras are means to being peaceful. When Guruji was teaching us at the Overseas Acharyas Conference, he was saying the Visheshana, or the specialty of Chinmay Mission, is knowledge. Every Chinmay Mission activity's focus is enlightenment, moksha. Devi groups, Raranjali, Chik, adult study groups, everything is geared towards one direction, enlightenment. These are all means to being peaceful. Now, as we begin with the actual samskaras, we're going to begin with number 1, naturally. Not most people, everyone in this room has already passed the first samskara, obviously. Obviously, and when I explain it, it'll make sense. We've passed many of these samskaras. We will go through many. But we can also be a catalyst to encourage those who have not gone through these samskaras to go through that. Whether it's our children, whether it's our grandchildren. Some people may be getting married soon. Some people may be passing away soon. Not in this room. We may know other people that are passing away. It is important to know the essence of all of these stages of life. So keep that in mind. We begin. The first samskara is called Garbha Dhanam. Garbha Dhanam is the first samskara. And contrary to what we often believe Garbha Dhanam is, it's not when the fetus is first identified. It actually happens before that. It is when that couple chooses to invoke a child. When they have that sankalpa to have a child, that's Garbha Dhanam. First samskara. And the beauty of this is that it's an invocation, not an accident. They're choosing to have that child. And so right from the beginning in this samskara, what is separated is attraction from lust. There's a difference between the two. Attraction is controlled. Lust is uncontrolled. Our rishis know that biologically we have this innate tendency to be attracted to the opposite gender. So they said, good, curtail that, go through grahastashrama. If this desire is there, do it in a healthy fashion. So Garbha Dhanam is not based on lust, it's based on attraction. Attraction makes the species go on. Lust is a form of destroying the species. So that invocation of a child, and when I was sharing these thoughts in Peoria, and the last 15 minutes of the discourse every day, we'll have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. I may not be able to. So one person had asked, what about homosexual couples? Did they go through Garbha Dhanam? And if we think about the samskaras, it's the invocation of a child. So if they want to adopt a child, that's Garbha Dhanam. Correct? It's an invocation. As a mother thinks, so the child becomes. So once that invocation is there, once the couple want to have a child, then that mother, in the traditional sense, begins to start thinking about Bhagavan. Lord Ganesha or Hanumanji, I want my child to be strong like Hanumanji. Because whatever she's thinking, that baby will too. Fetal alcohol syndrome. Whatever that mother ingests, that baby ingests too. Now that's an actual substance, liquid or solid. Imagine the thoughts, which are that much more subtle and that much more positive. The way she thinks is the way the child will think. So the mother begins to change the way she thinks to remember the divine. And when they know of conception having taken place, they have satsang then. They invite Swami Dhirananda over and he gives a few talks and there's Bhiksha afterwards. That's what happens. Satsang happens then. Again, as a catalyst to thinking about the divine, immersing one in divine company. Now I keep using this word satsang. Gurudev has shared that satsang happens in 3 ways. Number 1 is with people. And I love this word satsang. Sangha means attachment. That's why Lord Krishna says, asanga, 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 asangoham. Satsanga means good company. See, you add that word sat and that whole sang goes away and it becomes good. It becomes a source of detachment. So satsang is good company, real company, truthful company, positive company. Now we all know that we can't be in satsang with people all the time. We have to go to work, we have to go home, we have to go to school, and on and on and on. So what to do then? Keep the words of those great thinkers on one's eyes and lips. In other words, reading. Reading the teachings, the life and teachings of our masters is satsang. If I read Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography, he himself has said, my life is my teachings. So if I read about his life, then that means I know him. One of Gurudev's famous quotes is, find me in my books. I've never physically met Puja Gurudev. In this room, in every room that we'll soon be in, the number of hands that will go up, if asked that question, will be less and less then. It's natural. But if we study Gurudev's writings, that is Gurudev. When we were studying, we studied half of Gurudev's commentaries. I believe I know Gurudev through his writings. So reading the words of the masters is satsang. The first time I met Guruji in 1997, I asked him, so Swamiji, what brought you to the spiritual path? What sustains you on the spiritual path? And he said he used to read the works of Swami Vivekananda. He used to read the autobiography of great masters, which helped him keep this sattvic. And the third type of satsang, and this is the most important, is a satsang that happens with our thoughts. When I have more negative thoughts than positive, that's called dussanga. When I have more positive thoughts than negative, that's called satsanga. Naturally, being with people affects my thoughts. Reading books affects my thoughts. That's where it has to happen. I need to have more positive thoughts, satsang. 3 ways where we have to do this. We often tell our children, don't give in to peer pressure, correct? We have to do the same. In the Balavihara camp, I said that the number 1 way to deal with people is to lead by example. That is how to deal with people, leading by example. In Vancouver, the first time I had gone to speak out loud, to study out loud, I just finished a discourse in a temple. Then I was leaving, and one lady rushed up to me and says, Vivekji, that was so good. You should come and teach our children. And I said, what about you? Right? It's always, yeah, you should come teach our children. Right? We'll just sit in the background, right? We'll drive them there, but we just teach our children. We have to lead by example. So, garbhadanam. Second samskara, pumsavana, is the second samskara. And this happens after the third month of the fetus. As it's growing into its third month, the food sheath, the annamaya kosha, the body, is coming into formation now. Our Ayurvedic rishi, Sushruta, he did all of this analysis and documented it. That this body comes into formation, the food sheath. And in that third month, then what do? You should already know the answer. Satsang. So again, satsang takes place. When we had taught this in Chicago at the youth camp, then I was teaching the high school class, and Swami Sharanananda loves when presentations are made on the last day. Like Swami Dhirananda, right? Everyone loves these presentations. So what our class did was they went through each of these samskaras and they just had satsang the whole time. They would just yell out the name and they'd run on stage and someone would be doing japa, someone would be singing, someone would be doing that, and then they would leave. Then they'd call the next one, then more satsang. But really, that's all that happens. What can you do when the fetus is 3 months old then? Right? Other than satsang, what can you do? So that's what happens then. So it's simple samskara. Now we get into a very beautiful one. The third samskara is called Simanto Nayana. And for those who came to the Mindful Living workshop last year, you remember, correct? Yes, of course you do. We had shared this, we talked about this last year. In the 5th or 6th month, the mental sheath and the intellectual sheath are being formed. The Manomaya Kosha and the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Simanto Nayana is made up of 3 words. Sima, Anta, and Unnayana. Sima means boundary. Anta means end of the boundary. Unnayana means opening. By a quick show of hands, how many of you actually went through the Simanto Nayana samskara? I see 1 hand, 2, 3, 4. Now people are just putting their hands up so they feel included. This is where a husband takes a porcupine quill. Now everyone's scared. He takes a porcupine quill and he parts the mother's hair. Now we don't use porcupine quills, we just use a comb. And that hair is supposed to be parted. And what this symbolizes is that the husband, that father, is taking responsibility of that mother, and he is opening the fate of that child. He's opening that mind, that intellect to be generous, to be brilliant, to be forward in thinking. So that boundary, the end of that boundary is being opened up. So this should not be the end of my child the way he thinks or the way she thinks, but should be endless. And at that time, the husband's in-laws meet with that husband in private, and they give him advice. And he knows it's coming, so he doesn't like it, but he has to sit anyways. I'm telling you this based on experience. And that husband is told one piece of advice only. And what is that piece of advice? Keep our daughter happy. If not for our daughter's sake, keep her happy for our grandchild's sake. And then that mother is given advice from her in-laws. And she likes it even less. And she's told one piece of advice only. And what is that advice? The same. You be happy. Because if you're happy, the chances of your child being happy is more. If you're unhappy, the chances of your child being unhappy is more too. So be happy. A lot of the times we look after everything about our spouses and even children other than their happiness, which is what the focus is. Today in the Balavira camp, they spent 5 minutes writing down their purpose or purposes in life. And almost every one of them, other than one Balavira student, said to make lots of money. Only one said to not make lots of money. And when I asked, okay, why do you want to make lots of money? First they said, I want to finish school so I can get a good job, so I can make lots of money. One person said, so I can buy happiness. And he goes, what I've realized, he's only 12 years old. He goes, what I realized is that money can buy happiness. And he goes, then I want to give some of the money away. Why do you want to give it away? So I can make people happy. Why do you want to make people happy? So I can be happy. At the end of the day, it boils down to, so I can be happy. That's what it comes down to. One of our Balavar teachers had once met me, and we had this conversation. He said, I want to get involved with nonprofit work, but my family business, this is not about me, okay? My family business, my parents want me to take over that family business, but I want to get involved in nonprofit. So I'm conflicted. He's talking some more. He says, I want to get involved in nonprofit, but I also want to be able to provide for a family. So he's understood that there's no money in nonprofit work. So I proposed a situation to him. I said, suppose you take up your family business. And this is a very black and white exaggeration. Just keep it in mind. You go to work not looking forward to work. You're at work, you're not so happy. You come home, and again, you're happy that you're escaping work. What is your attitude going to be at home then? With your wife, with your children? Versus if you take up nonprofit work, where you're looking forward to going to work, you enjoy being there, you enjoy coming back, and your relationship with your wife and children. With one, you can send your kids to private school, you can take them traveling wherever they want. With the other, you'll always be smiling. With your wife, with your children. Which of these roles is going to make you a better father? So let us think about that. He got the message that he needs to do what will make him happy because it'll be conducive for his family to be happy, which is the purpose of life, which is the purpose of a game. To be happy. And there's a beautiful story that goes with this. One day, a rich man wanted to renovate his barn. And so he hired a plumber, a handyman, who could do a bunch of work. And this plumber, this handyman came and he was doing work in the barn. And he had to go get supplies. And when he went to turn his car on, it wouldn't start. And so he was stuck. So he just stayed there and did his work. His drill that he was using, that broke too. And he hurt his arm. So a really bad day at work. And when this rich man had come back, he saw that this man was struggling. So he said, don't worry, I'll take you home. I'll drive you home. So he's sitting in this rich man's car, dead silent. Because naturally, he didn't have a good day, nothing to say. He gets to his house, and there's a bush outside his house, and he rubs his hand all over this bush. Then he goes inside, and that dead silence, his face lights up, he hugs his children, he kisses his wife. And this rich man is with him. He's invited him to come inside. He offers him a glass of juice. And this rich man is shocked. This man who is dead silent, naturally agitated, has totally changed. And when that rich man is about to leave, the handyman walks him to his car, and that man asks him, what happened to you? What were you doing in that bush that caused you to transform from who you were in the car to who you were at home? And that handyman says, that bush is where I leave my stresses. I hang up each one of my stresses on that bush because they don't belong at home. This is work, that's home. And I go in with peace. And I tell God that I'll pick him up the next morning. And he tells this rich man then, and amazingly, every time when I come back in the morning, there's always less stresses. There's not as many to pick up. This is the essence of Simanto Nayana. Everyone needs to be happy. And the mother is also told to be moral. Mother Lakshmi is invoked during this samskara, and the idea is that Mother Lakshmi can protect one from that which is negative, and she can bring in that which is positive. This is the real wealth in life. We often think of Deepavali a few months from now. Lakshmi Mata is standing like this. Hopefully she has 6 or 8 arms, so there's more gold coins coming and there's elephants everywhere, right? But the wealth that she gives us is not gold coins. It's not homes or vehicles. It's the Shat Sambatti. The 6-fold inner wealth is what she gives us. She gives us Shama, calmness of mind. Who doesn't want calmness of mind? Dhamma, control over the senses. Who doesn't want that? Uparama, titiksha, shraddha, samadhanam. All wealth that makes my equipment, my body, mind, intellect, I become the master of that rather than this becoming a master of me. This is what she gives. And when I have these qualities, I will naturally succeed at anything I do. One of the expressions of realization is dakshata praptihi. When someone gets realized, they become dexterous at everything they do. They become awesome at anything they touch. And every one of our masters was like that. Anything they did, they were tremendous at. For those who have read Tulsi Ramayana, it is, and it's how great that we're going to have the Tulsi Ramayana Mahotsava in June. I'm restudying it, and I can't help but be moved by how much depth Tulsidas goes into every word. I was sharing this morning that at the beginning of Balkand, he prostrates to all of the good people in the world, he prostrates to all of the bad people in the world. So we all think, why in the world is he, this great master, prostrating to all of the bad people in the world? And he says, because everyone is the source of joy. He says, good people bring joy when they come and bad people bring joy when they leave. But we would never think of that, correct? That shows their depth, how they have that inner wealth that they succeed outside then. Only with this wealth can a person truly succeed in the outside world with wealth. They did a study in Ontario. Our lottery system is called Lotto 649. And they studied people who won the lottery a year after they won the lottery, and in many situations they were financially worse off than prior to the lottery. Because there's so much wealth outside, but what to do with it because I have no wealth inside in these isolated incidences. And the idea is that the child then realizes what wealth is. That's why one of Arjuna's names is Partha. Partha means the one who knows that Parameshwara is the real Artha. The real wealth in life is Bhagwan. Which is why when Duryodhana and Arjuna both went to Lord Krishna, what did Arjuna want? What did Duryodhana want? They both studied under Rishi Sandipani. Both of them had the same Rishi who taught them. But one took the message this way, one took the message the other way. Duryodhana says, give me your army and your weapons. Arjuna says, I just need you to guide me. And so he does, and who was victorious then? Inner wealth or outer wealth? The intellect is the means to realization. Again, let's bring animals into the equation. Do animals have an intellect, yes or no? No. Humans, yes or no? Yes. Can animals get realized, yes or no? No. Humans, yes or no? If we subtract the common variables, intellect equals realization. That is the point and the purpose of the intellect, of being a human being. And this is why Madhusudana Saraswati says the gauge of the greatness of a human being is how much they use their intellect. That's how we know how great we are. The person who discriminates, that can't make me happy, that can. That shows one's greatness. We have endless stories in our scriptures where the child in the mother's womb is learning what the mother is learning. Whether it's Abhimanyu, correct? Prince Arjuna's son, who learned that war strategy, or Shukra Maharaj, who was born realized because his father was Vedvyasa, writing Gita, writing Mahabharata, writing the Puranas, writing Srimad Bhagavatam, writing the Brahma Sutras. Naturally, he's going to be realized. Even while we were studying in the ashram, 2005 to 2007, we had 3 pregnant ladies who came to the ashram and lived there for 1 month each. They were at Vedic chanting at 5:30. They were at Upanishad class at 7. They were at Sanskrit class. God knows why they were at Sanskrit class at 10 o'clock. They came to every class because they understood that the way that the environment they're exposed to is the environment that their child will invoke. So even now, people live these samskaras, which is why we need to know about them. Simanto Nayana. First samskara was Garbha Danam. Pumsavana. Then we just studied Simanto Nayana. And now the fourth is Jata Karma. Jata Karma is the fourth samskara. The first 3 samskaras we studied were called prenatal samskaras. That being is still in the mother's womb. Jata Karma is a combination of prenatal and childhood. Now we're shifting towards the childhood samskaras. And I'll explain why. First of all, this samskara happens when the fetus is born, is exposed to the world that you and I are living in. That's when Jata Karma happens. And at that time, the father goes to the child and feeds the child. What is the child fed? Honey, ghee, and yogurt. Good. I'm glad that some of us are aware of this. Why honey? Why do we put honey in our chai? Or agave. Now we put agave, right? To sweeten that chai, to sweeten that dessert. In the same way, the father gives this to the child saying, may all of your life experiences be sweet. Why ghee? We say people that eat lots of ghee, right? And here too. But that's the way Indians think. We were just joking about that, right? When you gain weight, that means you're healthy. That means you're healthy and you're rich. So ghee, may you be strong. May all of your life experiences be strong. And yogurt, why dhai? Ask any South Indian. I share this because my wife is South Indian. And at the end of each meal, because we spend every Sunday night that I'm in not traveling with my in-laws. And when we have dinner on Sunday or Monday, then they always look at me with great concern and say, do you want curd rice? And I look at them with great concern and say, no. And then they look at me with great concern and confusion. What do you mean you don't want curd rice? I only want curd rice if there's chilies, if there's pickle. That's why I want curd rice. But essentially, it's to bring that serenity to one. It's a cooling effect. Yogurt. May all of your life experiences be serene. This is why the father feeds the child. Now again, in Peoria, one of the people in the audience was a pediatrician. So as soon as she heard honey, she thought botulism. So can you still give honey? I said, this is symbolic, okay? It doesn't take a spoon and opens the child's mouth and give honey. Symbolically, it takes a fraction and just puts it on the child's lips. It can be sugar, it can be agave, it doesn't matter. So even when we do bhog, right, to Bhagwan, some people take that and put it in Bhagwan's mouth, right? And what we're traditionally in a puja vidhi, we take that food and we give it to Bhagwan like this. Om pranaya swaha, om apanaya swaha, correct? May you ingest it, may it be digested. And this is important to know. For those who have been to Sandipani recently, I would say the last few years, Bhagwan Ganesha, who's now behind a glass casing, was not like that. While I studied, Bhagwan Ganesha was not behind that glass. But so many people came to Jagdishwar temple, which is great, but so many people also rubbed his feet, which has now been deteriorated. That stone is chipping away now. So they have to put it behind a glass casing, or they have to change the feet. And with the murti, you're not supposed to fix parts of the murti. If a murti is cracked, you can't install that murti then. So we should understand the symbolism, that if I bow my head before Lord Ganesha's feet, I'm not going to get more or less blessings than if I rub his feet too. It's not a lamp. There's no genie's going to come out. So here, the symbolism needs to be understood. And I say this is a combination samskara because the father feeds this child while the umbilical cord is not there. Let me rewind. I keep mixing this up. The father feeds the child when the umbilical cord is still there. Still there, not when it's not there. So the point is that it's a mixture of both, because the child hasn't independently eaten yet, because the umbilical cord is still there. When the umbilical cord falls, that's when it's a real independent birth of that child. So the father still feeds the child while the umbilical cord is there. Now, to this point is, if the father's not there, then that child is, this samskara, this jata karma is done 11 days later. And how insightful our rishis were that they chose 11 days, because biologically, that's how much time it takes for the umbilical cord to really fall off. See, this came thousands of years ago. It brings me great joy when today's scientists and today's researchers confirm what our rishis have been teaching for thousands of years. Great joy. On February 26th of 2009, the Ontario government, which is the province I live in, they said, if you drive with a cell phone, with a handheld device, and drive at the same time, that's a $155 ticket and 3 demerit points. And when I saw that sign, I thought, thank you, Government of Ontario. What Lord Krishna has been teaching for 6,000 years, that you can only have one thought at a time, you all know now. And you spent millions of dollars trying to understand this, and so many compromised lives. Right? In Gita, how clearly does Lord Krishna say, one thought at a time? That's what a deepa, why the mind is compared to a deepa. Because that flicker is so fast, it looks like it's solid, but it's only one flicker at a time. Our thoughts are moving so fast that it's as if there's a mind there. But we can only have one thought at a time. Which is also why I laugh at my own life experiences, that I paid $20,000 a year to go to business school to learn how to multitask. And then I went to Sandeepani and studied for free, where they told me that's all wrong. During this Yamunotri camp too, when I asked him, why do you think the father is told to do jata karma 11 days after the samskara? And so what very logical young adults do, and they said, it's because the father probably fainted when he saw the baby. So they couldn't regain consciousness, so they had to wait 11 days. That is the 4th samskara. Now the 5th, and I'll just introduce it today, is namakarana. Namakarana, when the child is given a name. And the beauty of the way the rishis thought, why didn't they give a name right at birth, like is often forced in hospitals now? Because back in the day, and it even happens now, that child sometimes passes away. And when we give a name to an entity, that attachment develops. Without a name, there's less attachment. And our thinkers knew that that baby may not survive. Who knows? There wasn't medical equipment like we now have, or technology, blah, blah, blah. They're aware of that. And so they said, let's give a name after some time, after the child's health has stabilized. The best way to understand this samskara is to study Tulsi Ramayana. In Tulsi Ramayana, there's also another Ramayana, but it's not called Ramayana, it's called Namayana, where Tulsidas Ji spends huge sections just talking about the greatness of Bhagwan's name. On and on and on he goes about Bhagwan's name. And the point being, some of the points Tulsidas Ji makes, Bhagwan Rama freed thousands, 10,000s, hundreds of thousands, millions. Bhagwan Rama's name has freed tens of millions, hundreds of millions. That form can only go in certain places, but the name can go anywhere. We'll try a short experiment. I want everyone to think about cast curtain light. No, I just made that up, right? There's nothing that can go with it. But if I say Baskin Robbins, automatically the flavors start coming, correct? Not 31, 301. What if I say, let's go negative, let's go Shishupal. Thoughts of Shishupal come up, and Lord Krishna merging, taking in Shishupal. When I say Lord Rama, what thoughts come up? I've just used two Sanskrit letters, Ra and Ma. But how much transformation happens in the mind? Before his form comes up, his name is an invitation for him to come. And Guruji has used it in such a sense. He said, if one calls out to Bhagwan, Bhagwan has no choice but to come. Like a salesperson. If a salesperson keeps on ringing the doorbell or keeps on calling, eventually we pick up the phone and it says, don't call or don't come, right? But we picked up the phone, and as soon as we see Bhagwan, realization. Once I have Bhagwan's darshan, now I'm done. So call out of hatred, call out of love, call out of sorrow, call out of happiness, call out to the divine. Whatever name. Lord Shiva, Devi, Lord Ganesha, doesn't matter. They're all simply names and forms of Brahman. Janma pati iti japa. That which protects us from being born is japa. So now the question is, why do we need protection from being born? Because we've just entered Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is 43,200 years long. We've just entered Kali Yuga. And when one reads the newspaper, one has to just put it down. You know what to do. It's intense. The wars, the actions of the soldiers, what's happening on soccer fields now. Right? Where is the peace? Where is the love? So the best thing to do is realize and get out. Truly, what other strategy is there? By taking Bhagwan's name, with every name I clean, it's one wipe of that mirror. And the more I take Bhagwan's name, the more that mirror gets cleaned, and I realize, hey, I'm just calling out to myself. This is who I am. This is my nature. And I qualify this by saying I'm an optimist, and I'm saying get realized and get out. We give great importance to a name, and which name do we give most importance to? Our own, of course. Everyone's favorite word is their own name. So if we're going to take someone's name again and again and again, a child's in this case, let it be one that inspires those positive thoughts. Now, when I shared this in Peoria, one couple who had not given their children one of Bhagwan's names, they were very disturbed by this. They're like, so what are we supposed to do now? Do we change our kids' names? But their kids' names were qualities. Like Vivek. Vivek is not everything is Bhagwan's name, but Vivek is not a name of Bhagwan. It is a quality of Bhagwan. That ability to discriminate between the real and the unreal. So I suggested is connect your child's name, which is that quality, to Bhagwan then. That's the idea. Taking Lord Rama again. A common saying in our scriptures is, not in our scriptures, but those who study and share insights into the scriptures, learn from Lord Krishna and live like Lord Rama. Because Lord Rama came as Manava Dharma. He came as a human being. He didn't come as Bhagwan. He is Bhagwan. He always knew he was Bhagwan. Everyone knew he was Bhagwan, but he came for you and I as a human being. This is why he went to the Gurukul to study. This is why he shed tears. That's why he only had one wife. Lord Krishna had how many? 16,008 wives. Lord Rama only had one. Mother Sita was so loyal to Lord Rama, despite all of the threats from Ravana. But her mind, she was advised, Ekapati Vrata. That means not just even, let alone touching another man, one is not even allowed to think of another man. He came as a man. Lord Krishna didn't come as a man at all. Right from the time he was born, everything was magical about him. Everything. We connect to Lord Rama in this way, that he has lived an ideal life. Whenever we think of Lord Rama, we think of that idealism, the ideal brother, the ideal king, the ideal husband. So let us think of the quality associated with the names that we have to connect it to Bhagwan. That is the significance of Namakarna. The quality and the name can never be separated. They cannot be. And that's why even in our Srimad Bhagavatam, we have the story of Ajamila, who named his son Narayana, but never thought his son was Narayana. And at the time of he's approaching death, he calls out to Narayana, his son, calls out to his biological son. And so he's about to pass, and Yamas, who is the controller, the lord of death, they show up at his bed. But before they get there, who's already there? Narayana's messengers. And Yama's messenger is saying, hey, what are you doing here? And Narayana's messenger is saying, what are you doing here? He called for Narayana. We're taking him to Narayana. What control, what jurisdiction do you have over here? And then they all started fighting. And the point in this, and I'm not going to say it's a story, because as soon as we say story, we think it didn't happen. The story in this episode is that even if that devotion is not there, there's power in that name. When Ratnakara was told, take the name of the ideal man, take the name of Rama, what came out of his mouth? Mara. Mara in Hindi means dead or die. He's saying die, die, die. But in time that evolved into Rama, Rama, Rama. He had no devotion. He was a most tamasic person. But that mundane name turned into a meaningful name because of the Lord's grace. This is why Gurudev says, when it comes to meditation, we have to not only be sincere, we have to be regular. Regularity turns us develops that sincerity. So in the same way, just call out the Lord's name. Our Acharya Gorang said that, why do we say bless you when someone sneezes? See, back in the day, if I sneezed, that means I was sick. I may have had the plague. And I may not get better, so if I sneeze, hey, bless me that I don't pass away. Or I heard someone say, when you sneeze, it means your soul is trying to escape your body. A reaction in the lungs is trying to cause my soul to escape my body, right? Bless you. So he said, instead of saying bless you, take the Lord's name, say Narayana, say Shiva, say Mata, whatever it is. And so even when these biological functions are happening, if we take the Lord's name, we'll remember that more. One of our chicks was saying his practicum, his idea to be lived this week is to do Brahmarpanam even while driving, right before driving. And the idea is when I eat, I consume food, correct? I consume organic materials to sustain this body. When we drive, we also consume fuel, correct? And it's for a purpose, to go to work or to come to satsang. So do Brahmarpanam before driving. Why not? Well, we can only do it before eating? Brahmarpanam should be done always. The Lord's name should be taken always. So one of our samskaras is namakarana. And I'll share some more thoughts on this tomorrow. Each one of these samskaras gets better. That's what's awesome about these samskaras. Like, these really don't apply to us at this point. But when we get to Upanayanam, so much to talk about. Vivaha, the most important of all of the samskaras is Vivaha. And I'm not saying that based on experience. I'm basing that on the scriptures. But I'm not going to tell you why. You have to come. So now in the remaining 15 minutes, if anyone has any questions on what was shared in this evening or this morning or anything in life in general, then I'll try to answer those. I'm not interested in answering any questions about fantasy leagues because it is a waste of time. Yes? Correct. I've never read where it's done only for the first child. So I can't give an answer to that because I've read 2 scriptures on the samskaras and studied this under Swami Sharanananda, and it's nowhere it's said that it's only done for the first child. That Simanto Nayana, for those who didn't hear, based on my understanding, is that it's done for every child. Nice and loud, please, so everyone can hear you. There's no true reason behind it. I don't have a bias towards I like Lord Krishna and Lord Shiva's my enemy. Nothing like that. These are simply the words that I've used because, I'll give you a practical reason. I'm teaching Gita in many cities, and I'm studying Ramayana and sharing insights into Ramayana in many cities. So that's the name that comes more often. It's no different than if you asked me for a girl's name, I would probably say my wife, because that's the name I say the most. I teach Vishnu Sahasranama in Niagara Falls. So many names are the same as Lord Shiva's. Shankara, Shiva, Ananta, all of Lord Vishnu's names are Lord Shiva's. And all of Lord Shiva's names are Lord Vishnu. And I want us to be clear about that because often I'm a Vaishnava. I only celebrate Ekadashi and Dwadashi and so on. I'm a Shaivite, you know. Mahashivratri or bust only. Before Lord Rama went to Lanka, what did he do at Rameshwaram? He built a Shivlinga and he worshipped Lord Shiva. In our Puranas, there's an episode where Lord Vishnu is worshipping Lord Shiva. And he's doing Shiva Sahasranama, so all 1,000 names of Lord Shiva. So now Lord Shiva comes to test Lord Vishnu's devotion. So he takes one of the lotuses. And now he's on the 1,000th name, but there's no lotus, so what does he do? Takes his eye out. Because his eyes are said to be lotus-like. So he takes his own eye out and offers it to Lord Shiva. Naturally, Lord Shiva's delighted by the depth of devotion of Lord Vishnu. These are all just different names and forms of one. That's it. So we call Swami Vivekananda, we call Paramahansa Yogananda, we call Adi Shankaracharya. This is the Guru Tattva. With different names and forms, and some people are attracted in this way, some people are attracted in that way, some people are attracted in this way. It is all fundamental. It is all that essence. Yeah. Sure. I believe Swami Vivekananda's Jayanti was January 15th, and I believe it was his 150th, January 12th, I think, and it was his 150th Jayanti. Something significant. And I was thinking to myself on this day, imagine Swami Vivekananda had access to the technology we now have access to. Imagine he had a Twitter account, how many people would follow him, right? Imagine he had email. But then I was also thinking about how technology is, like everything in life, is a blessing and a curse. Because the more people that email him, that he can email, are the same people that can email him then. And how can one keep up with it? So technology is a blessing. I can learn about Vishnu Sahasranama and Puja Vidhi and Gayatri Mantra, everything. I can just type it into YouTube, type it into Google. All of our batchmates, including Anand Uncle and Pramilaji, so we are on a Yahoo group. And so if you send an email, it goes to everyone. So I once got an email from one of our batchmates, and he watched this Tamil movie. And the hero and the villain were in a dialogue. And the villain says to the hero, "I'm going to hit you so hard that even Google won't be able to find you." But there's no substitute for that face-to-face interaction. There is not. And that's why when we depend on recordings, when we depend on videos, if I can't access that person physically because they're too far or I'm not well, fine. But if I can get to that person who is speaking, teaching, there is no substitute for that. We all know recordings. We're driving while we're listening to them, right? That attention span is not there. Or when we're doing it at home and I'm just going to lie down and listen, right? Then gone. Oh yeah, I listened to a 1-hour lecture last night. I was sleeping for 1 hour last night. And I'll tell you one deeply personal experience that really showed me the importance of this. I went into Sandipani the way that I went into business school. And that is, I am going there thinking this is just another institute of studies. I figured out how high school works. I figured out how undergraduate works. I'm going to figure out how this works too. And so I sat in the back row. As long as I'm close to a speaker, why do I care where I sit? And I sat there with my legs out and I would take my notes and so on. It was 2 months after they had passed. I just had this revelation, and this shows Bhagwan's grace. This sankalpa came into my mind as I walked from the temple to Saraswati Nilayam, our lecture hall. And I thought, let me sit in the front, but not the real front. I'll sit in the second row. Because if you sit in the first row, everyone sees what's happening, right? If you adjust your legs and so on. So I sat in the second row, and the experience was totally different. Try to sit as close as possible because there's less distractions, there is more connection. I'm not just saying this so you can see me and sit close to me. Anywhere, any situation. Be near the front. Swami Shantananda had said the same. He had done a satsang for us, and we were all writing notes frantically. And he says, "What are you all doing?" And we just innocently said, "We're taking notes, Swamiji. Your thoughts are great." He says, "But look at me. You have to look at Guruji as he's teaching. That's the whole point of the Gurukul, to develop that connection." And we got it then. So Puja Vidhi. Puja is inviting Bhagwan from my heart, from your heart, into an icon. It could be a picture, it could be a murti, it could be the padukas, it could be a diya. It can be anything. As long as I can invoke that, it can be anything. That's why one of our steps is avahanam, where I touch my heart with my left hand, I touch the icon with the right, and I say avahanam samarpayami. That I've now taken Bhagwan who lives in me, who enlivens me, and I've invoked him or her into this icon. And just like we treat a guest, see, I'm going to many people's homes, so Purna Kumbha is there, then they offer a seat, then they offer water, food is after that, Chandan Kumkum. Same goes with Bhagwan. Here's a seat, wash your feet, wash your hands, drink something, we take your name, we offer you our best, then we say, Udvasanam. Now you go. You go, but Yathasanam Punar Agamanaya Cha. But come back again and again and again. And come back with more blessings. This is the idea. That you've blessed me and my household. Now you go and come back again and again and again. People think, why Ganesha Chaturthi? Why do you waste so much time and energy putting Lord Ganesha into the water? Just keep him. But the idea is go, Bhagwan, and come back again. Our Samvidji, who was our Upacharya, Guruji was our Acharya. Samvidji taught us our secondary classes, Puja, Vidhi, Sanskrit, Vedic chanting. He said that we all love when Lakshmi Mata, we all invoke her for Deepavali, right? We all tell her to come to our home. And when she comes in, what do? Lock the door. Don't go now. But if we don't encourage her to leave, she takes more than what she came with. So we ask her to come deposit inner wealth, outer wealth, go, come back. And this exchange happens. So that door is always supposed to be kept open. Now I want everyone to remember this on Wednesday when you have your Guru Dakshina envelopes. So I'll take your question tomorrow because I had a question this morning that I wanted to give some time to. Daviji, right? So Daviji was asking me about the experience I had before the Overseas Acharyas Conference, where I spent 1 week in Mona. I spent 1 week, 168 hours, in a room by myself, locked from the outside. So, isolation, not solitary confinement, okay? Not jail. I voluntarily went to spend time in solitude. What did I do there? Before I went there, then someone had told me there's 3 purposes that one tends to go to the Hari Om ashram, not affiliated with Chinmay Mission. Some people go for japa, just japa. Some people go for mananam, and some people go for dhyana. So that tends to be the focus. I went there for mananam. That was my vision behind going to the Monashram. And I would literally just sit in a chair not a chair like this, it was just a lawn chair, and I would just sit looking at the diagonal part of the roof for 2 hours. Just looking and thinking about, who am I? What am I doing here? Am I happy? And fundamental questions. Then after my back would get hurt, I would lie down on the swing. This is in Gujarat. And I would pull myself back and forth on the swing, continuing with the same. Just thinking. And as I'd shared this morning, on Wednesday, because I went in on a Monday, this epiphany happened that if this gentleman, this manager of this ashram, never opens that door, I'll be fine. Because I'm learning that I am the source of happiness. I am happiness, as we discussed today. Why do I need anything else? They're giving me food. I have water. What else is needed? I would appreciate some English books. They kept on giving me Gujarati books. And I'd appreciate an iPod too. It would add to the enlightenment. But even if that's not there, we all have all we need. And we learn that through the rishis call it tapas, we can call it experimentation, where we learn to live without X, Y, and Z. This was the essence of the Monashram. And I was saying, to whatever extent we can do so, we should do the same tapas, engage in the same spiritual discipline, and know that one doesn't have to go to Surat to do it. One doesn't have to go to Ahmedabad to do it. We all have our own homes. It's like this idea of vanaprastha. A lot of us get scared when we hear this word vanaprastha. And we get scared because our scriptures have said, the day one sees the face of their first grandchild is the day one has to move into the forest. But now when we hear move into the forest, 2 things. Number 1, we cannot move into the forest because we will never survive. Number 2, it's probably illegal. You still have to pay taxes and so on and so forth. So vanaprastha happens here. That's where it happens. That I have to hibernate from that which is not necessary and engage in that which is necessary, which is my communion with the divine. Because I don't know how many more days, how many more hours, how many more minutes or seconds that I may be alive. Young people and old people both die. As one grows older, it becomes more definitive because the body is aging. This is the whole premise of vanaprastha, but in here. This word sannyasa, this is the last thought I'll offer, and then we'll continue tomorrow. The word sannyasa means, sannyasa and swami, I'll define both of them. Sannyasa means renunciation. Swami means master, like this person is my swami. Master of what? Master of the sense organs. You and I eat more when we are unhappy. When we are happy, we eat less. Which is why Guruji says, when the heart is full, the stomach is full. We already know that. Children know that best. Their mothers make them eat. Their mothers make them tired, and so on and so forth. Sannyasa, renounce. Renounce what? Sorrow is renounced. The real sannyasi is the one who's renounced sorrow. Which is why Ramakrishna Paramahansa said, the person who has body consciousness is a samsari. The person who doesn't have body consciousness is a sannyasi. It has nothing to do with their name and form. It is their essence. We're learning about the importance of a name. More important than the name is the essence behind the name. All of us are open to being such a master, if we choose to. It is the way that we think, so think well. Samskara, act well, but the way to act well is to think well. Hence, Ajnana Yajna. We shall continue tomorrow. And your name, who had the question? Okay, so you'll have the first question tomorrow. Again, which means you have to come tomorrow. And if you don't, then that's not my fault. We'll conclude with our prayer.